exploration of the recreation and amenity potential of the Maigue Rivers. And this is a study commissioned by the Trust and carried out by SLR Consultants. So before we get down to the main business of the evening, I just want to give you a brief background to the Maigue Trust. We're a voluntary organisation. We have charitable status. We have a board of 11 directors, and they're drawn from different areas such as agriculture, education, angling, tourism, and so on. And we have a full-time project officer, Liz Gabbett, who's organising this evening's meeting. The Trust was established in 2017 in response to, I suppose you would call it, increasing pressure on the environment of the rivers of the Maigue catchment. And that catchment also includes, besides the Maigue itself, it includes the River Luba, the Morning Star, Camogue, and many other smaller tributaries. So while the focus of the Trust is primarily environmental, and that is we want to bring about improvements, for example, in water quality, in control of invasive plants, such as giant hogweed. We also have an interest in habitat restoration, which is a priority actually on the Maigue catchment, and restoration of threatened populations of Atlantic salmon and crayfish. Part of our mission as well is to encourage water literacy through education and citizen science amongst individuals and communities. And we also offer guidance to those communities, groups or individuals on how to care for their local river, their stream or their lake. And finally, I suppose the most relevant to tonight's launch, we aim to promote recreational use of the rivers, streams and lakes in the catchment. And just to give you an idea of our current activities, at the moment we're running a leader-funded project to protect and conserve freshwater crayfish, which are threatened by an introduced disease. They're in danger of annihilation, in fact, on the Maigue catchment and in other catchments in Ireland. We're drawing up a management plan for control of giant hogweed along the Morning Star River, and that's funded by Limerick City and County Council. We've drawn up a plan for improving spawning areas for salmon in the upper part of the Camogue, which is, as I mentioned earlier, is a tributary of the Maigue. And we're working with Inland Fisheries Ireland to actually implement that plan. And we also have similar work in progress on the Glashobee, which is another tributary of the Maigue. We have ongoing engagement with communities and landowners in the catchment. For example, this week, as you know, is Heritage Week, and on Friday we're running a family fun day, and it's also an education day as well at Grana on the Glashobee River in collaboration with Grana Development Association, and also a similar event on the River Luba at Kilfinnan on Sunday. You can actually find out more information on our website, which is www.maigriverstrust.com, and that contains all of our various reports and work that we have carried out on the catchment, and also other information on the catchment as well, and links to other river trust. And the study that's been launched tonight is also available on that website. I also want to bring your attention to a new development this year. We're expanding our membership of the Trust to include associate members and supporters, and details of this will also be on our website shortly. So to tonight's event, I'll just give you a lowdown on what's involved in tonight's event. So as well as the amenity and recreation study we're launching tonight as part of our education program, a leaflet on understanding the Maigue Rivers. That's prepared by Catherine Dalton, who's also a member of the board. So Catherine will give a brief introduction to that after I'm finished. Then our treasurer, Sibren Ogle, who originated the idea of the recreation study and really was the driving force behind it, he'll give a brief introduction to the study and why we think it's important. Then at approximately 7:15, Deirdre Lewis, who is the author of the Amenity and Recreation study, will present the main findings. Following that, at approximately 7:30, we'll have a brief question and answer session. And then we'll round off the event by having a poetic interlude with Willie Carr, and finally a compendium of photos showing the wildlife of the Maigue catchment. And we should conclude around 7:45 or so. So I just, as I mentioned already, if could I ask all the participants to mute their Zoom screens and turn your cameras off during the presentation, but you'll have an opportunity, obviously, at the question and answer session to switch them on again. And we'll hopefully be able to try and get maybe a group photograph at that stage anyway. You might have seen a sign coming up there that the launch will be recorded and available as well on our website. So thank you all for your attention, and I now hand over to Catherine Dalton. Thank you.
Thanks very much, Tom, and welcome to everybody this evening. It's great to see so many of you here. So we're taking advantage of this evening by launching a second item on behalf of the Trust. First of all, I'm, as Thomas said, my name is Catherine Dalton. I'm one of the Maigue Rivers Trust directors, and I kind of focus on research on the Maigue River catchment, particularly with my students. I'm actually a lecturer in geography in Mary Immaculate College. So I get many of my undergraduate students to do small projects on the Maigue. And we've also been very lucky to have had a number of placement students from the University of Limerick doing different tasks for us for research on the Maigue Rivers. So in that role of researching the Maigue Rivers, we decided to put together an educational leaflet. And this educational leaflet, it's a short 4-page leaflet focused on the physical geography of the Maigue. And our target audience for the leaflet is the general public, but also second level students and undergraduate students. So Liz, I'm going to get you to share our screen now, if you will. And so as part of the launch now, we're going to show just a short 2-minute video introducing you to the leaflet. Liz is hopefully going to put that up soon. Great, we've got our screen share happening now. And so, as we said, this is going to be about 2 minutes long. Thank you, everybody. great. Thank you, Liz. And I'm now going to hand over to Sibrin.
Okay, thank you, Catherine, and good evening, everyone. So my name is Sibrin, and I'm one of the directors of the Maigue Rivers Trust. And specifically, I'm tasked with leisure, which sounds great, and tourism. And when the Maigue Rivers Trust was formed several years ago, one of the stated objectives was that we wanted to increase public awareness and appreciation of the rivers by encouraging their use for recreational purposes. So we feel the catchment has great potential for recreational activities, such as kayaking, angling, walking, etc. And the trust aims to work with local groups and landowners to develop the recreational use of the river, but in a sensitive and sustainable manner. So the purpose of commissioning the study was firstly to identify and catalogue the existing possibilities of recreation that are already there along the rivers of the Maigue catchment, and then secondly to identify new possibilities which could be developed further by perhaps in certain cases putting in the necessary infrastructure. So it's a combination really of existing and new ideas. We requested that the study focus mainly on the following activities: walking, boating, and by boating we mean kayaking and canoeing upstream, and more conventional boating also being possible downstream, say of Adair, where the river is tidal. Then as well as that, angling, cycling in the area, and wildlife observation. But obviously other activities were also looked at during the study. The idea was to try and identify the more obvious things that we should be able to focus on first. And the hope is that communities in the catchment will also use the findings in this report in order to make things happen in their area. These are all long-term ideas, really. There's no quick fixes envisioned at all. And yeah, even though the report itself is very comprehensive, it's by no means all-encompassing. So there's definitely going to be things that hadn't been looked at, hadn't been thought of. And from that point of view, we would absolutely welcome any further suggestions and ideas that people might have. We want to acknowledge the LEADER program for who do fund rural development in the EU for funding this study, and also the support of Ballyhoura development in making this study possible. And then also thanks to all the consultees, everyone that Deirdre spoke to in the process of putting together this report. So when we got the go-ahead to commission this study, it was put out on e-tenders, and from that SLR Consulting was selected, and that being in the person of Deirdre. So Deirdre, or Dr. Deirdre Lewis, she has a very impressive bio on the web, but in short, she's a technical director of SLR Consulting and a professional geoscientist with more than 25 years of experience. And she's managed feasibility projects and developed strategies for rural development, tourism, and recreation, as well as minerals and renewable energy in Ireland and all over the world, really. So with that, thanks, and we'll hand over to Deirdre. Thank you.
Bear with me 2 seconds now, just until it comes up. Thank you, everybody. And I'll just go to full screen here. So bear with me now 2 seconds. Okay, just going to the slideshow now. Can everybody see this? Happy enough?
Yeah, looks
Okay,
good.
so
Perfect.
yeah, great. So just thanks to Catherine, Sibrin and Tom for the introductions. This week we're celebrating National Heritage Week, and it's a delight to be able to present the work of the Maigue Rivers Trust in relation to the Recreation and Amenity study, which we've been working on over the last number of months. So moving along rapidly. The slide won't change for me. Not sure what's happening here, just not moving forward, Liz. Not sure what's going on, really. Perhaps I'll come back out and start the slideshow again. I beg your pardon. Don't know what's going on here now. The technology always gets us despite the best laid plans. Sorry, now where do we see? Okay, now we're ending. The aims of the project were to collate baseline information and then to identify the potential for recreational leisure activities. There was a two-phased approach adopted. One was really to look at what is the current provision of recreation and amenity, and the second to identify the future potential, as Sibrin outlined in his introduction. Now, the methodology was fairly straightforward. We did a very thorough review of all the policies and strategies, of which there are many, pertaining to outdoor recreation, to landscape management, to environmental management, from EU right down to national, regional, county and local level. Then there was a whole series of desk research studies done, and we went along to develop the current report. Now, this is what we're going to do tonight. Just look at the context and the rationale for the study, just the summary of the audit that was undertaken on the current recreation, that was the phase one, and then looking at the future proposals in a little bit more detail. Now, I just want to let you know, and everybody's aware of this, unfortunately, we hit into the throes of the pandemic, the post-Christmas pandemic, and fieldwork was quite limited initially, but then we did manage to get quite a bit of field work done in the latter part of the study. So what is recreation? Like, how do we define it? So I've taken the basis, there's a new national outdoor recreation strategy under development. It's in draft format at the moment, and there was a consultation undertaken in May, and I've adopted this. So basically it's all of the sort of outdoor activities you can think of, such as walking, canoeing, cycling, while swimming, etc. It does not include things that happen on pitches or motorized activities such as quads. Now, that doesn't exclude boating, like outboard engines, but the sort of noisy activities that happen in the uplands are not included. Now, why would anybody want to recreate? Why is recreation important to the Maigue Rivers Trust? I think for anybody, you can see here, look, the benefits of physical recreation are well researched from EU level right down to our own researchers here in Ireland. It really contributes to personal and community health and well-being. And it does help to eliminate antisocial behaviour and all sorts of other things. And it fundamentally helps to build a strong and healthy environment. National guidelines for activity, adults should have at least 30 minutes of moderate activity on most days this week, and children at least 1 hour. So keeping that in mind, we've sort of focused on recreation for the average citizen, not for the elite athletes that we've been looking at in the Olympics. Now, the catchment, as you've seen in the previous introductions, runs essentially from Ballingarry down south into the Ballyhoura Mountains, across towards Ballylanders and back up into East Limerick to Herbertstown and back up to the Limerick city. It's a network of dendritic streams, as you can see there, feeding into the main, pretty much north-south Maigue catchment, determined by the landscape, the geology, as Catherine said. So effectively, we have a type of a basin effect in County Limerick. So from the west, we have the uplands west of Newcastle West, the Mullicarraigs, the Ballyhouras and Galties down to the southeast, back around to the Schlieffelham Hills, and then the lowlands of that sort of brown colour and the red of the Shannon estuary lowland zone. Okay, there are a number of Natura designations. These are the European international designations to protect habitats and species. So there are a number of these, fundamentally around that sort of upland rim of the area we're looking at, and a few marked, I suppose, special areas of conservation. The red line that leads north-south from Adair northwards to the estuary. So the tidal reaches of the Maigue are part of the Lower Shannon Special Area of Conservation. A couple of special protection areas in the uplands and natural heritage areas in the blue. So not overly constrained by what we can do in terms of recreation. Now, it was important to look at water quality. Everything that the Maigue Rivers Trust is concerned with is to do with the river, the habitats, the species that live in it, and the recreation along the side or on the water. Water quality absolutely determines everything about what the Maigue Rivers Trust is about. Now, this was the most recent water quality report published at the end of 2020. Now, you needn't worry about the details. If you just look at the colours, the warm colours, which are the sort of reds and yellows, oranges, those sort of colours, you can see they're concentrated in the east and southeast for both the phosphate in the top left and the nitrate water quality to the right. Now, what that's telling us is where you have increased population and more intensive agriculture is leading to phosphate and nitrate enrichment in the waters. And you can see in the Maigue, there are some of those warm colours which indicate that the water quality is not as it should be or could be. Pretty much everything west of the Shannon, where you have less intensive agriculture and lower densities of population, we have blue colours, which is much healthier. Now, it's interesting to look at the demographic profile of County Limerick. This is from the last census, and what it's telling us really is that the population of Limerick, and this I think mirrors what's happening around the rest of the country, the population is, there's a big middle-age bulge, and that's, I'm saying middle-aged, but really from people over the age of 20-25, you can see that sort of classic bell-shaped curve. Everybody in that middle section are going to move to the right on that graph in the next couple of years. So people moving into their older years are going to seek more opportunities for recreation. All the trends in recreational participation and activity are that people are demanding more and more access to recreation. And you can see then coming behind that, the younger age groups, there are fewer of them than this middle-aged bulge. And so I think we're going to see that cohort looking for more access to recreation. Now, let's move quickly into the current provision, and I'm not going to dwell on too much detail. So the Maigue Rivers Trust asked me to focus on 5 key elements of recreational activity. You can see there: walking, cycling, angling, boating, and nature viewing. So we also picked up a few other things that are of interest. So initially we set about mapping all of the current recreational amenity and servicing as well. This includes the sort of hotels and guest houses, heritage centres and so on. So you can see there's a panorama of colours, but what you can see very clearly just by looking at the map without focusing on any details is that there's a cluster of activities up around Adair and northwards to the Shannon Estuary, more out there around Foynes and back towards Newcastle West, and then a big cluster down in the Ballyhoura Hills with a sort of a fairly sparse distribution otherwise. So I guess what we set about to do was to see if we could plug some of those gaps in that central zone of the Maigue Rivers catchment. So, and I've shortened this now quite a lot, we did an audit of pretty much everything that was there. We looked at every walking trail, cycling trails, everything, and basically plotted them onto a map. So you can see in the previous map, you can see the sort of spatial distribution of the physical infrastructure. So what you can see is we have this Great Southern Greenway coming in there from the west up to just north of Rathkeil. We have the Curragh Chase Forest Park. We've got Lochgar Heritage Park. We've got the Ballyhoura complex, if I'll call it that, to the south, with a whole range of walking and mountain biking trails, heritage facilities. And then these yellow trails centering out of the Kilmallock cycling hub and southwards into the Ballyhouras and over towards the Galties. But again, you can see there's very little activity on the rivers themselves. And we really tried to see, was there some way we could look at this and plug the gap? So this is what we're going to move into now, so into the phase 2 to have a look. The SCOT analysis, again, not going to go into an awful lot of detail. There's a whole basket of strengths. I mean, it's a beautiful area, very maybe underdeveloped in terms of recreational amenity, which lends itself to being really beautiful, gorgeous scenery, a lot of opportunities. The Maigue Rivers themselves, as we can see from the mapping, there's huge opportunities there. Working in partnership with farmers and landowners and negotiating access, there is potential for further expansion of the recreational base. Working with partners like Loughgore or with Curragh Chase as well, a lot of opportunities to develop. One of the things, the findings, I think, is the opportunity to develop trails of scale, and these would include greenways and blueways, which encompass walking, cycling and water trails. So it's not just on water stuff. And I think we'll come back and look at that. The challenge is really, the greatest challenge to development of recreational amenities in the area is the lack of access. And by that, I mean, you cannot say walk from Adair to Croom along the riverbank because of land ownership, private ownership, some very valuable stock, fears of landowners about, you know, dogs coming on, people leaving gates open, antisocial behaviour and all the rest of it. So there are a range of challenges, but that's the principal one, really. All the rest can be dealt with correct resourcing and supports from the various public sector partners. The threats, likewise, lack of access, maybe insurance for some of the service providers, and failure to secure funding, which may be a case. But I think on balance, we're going into a good period. We're moving into the next round of the Rural Development Programme. Timing is good, and there's very strong commitment from the likes of the leader companies, both Ballyhoura Development and West Limerick Resources, and also Limerick City and County Council. So that's all very positive. Now, looking forwards, just to see the possibilities that we identified through the study. So again, focusing on the same 5 key areas of recreation and a few others as well. Trying to build synergies, this was really critical, rather than just trying to reinvent the wheel, looking to see if we could join the dots from some of the existing infrastructure to new ones. So using this methodology, we identified 8 key areas for walking. And again, I'm not going to go into details tonight, they're all in the report, but just to pick a few from sort of north to south. So looking at the bank walk, this is the potential to develop a beautiful walk along the old bank, which was part of the flood alleviation schemes back in the 1950s and 60s. Walking along that, along the estuary where there's beautiful exposition to wildlife and to birds, peaceful, beautiful area to walk. A lot of landowners, maybe 37 to 40 landowners, so negotiations would have to be done. So what we did was propose maybe 4 stages to do it in steps. Walking all the way from Ferrybridge to Ringmoylan will require a lot of work to develop that. Looking at Great Southern Greenway extension eastwards, and that's already a lot of work underway by the various partners, Limerick City and County Council leading, with support from the development companies and a number of key personnel. So you see there a lot of ones. Sort of utilising the existing town parks network is one of the ones I thought was really interesting. Some beautiful little parks in East Limerick that I was unaware of until I undertook this study. And it's a fantastic asset to have and a great sort of springboard to develop other things. Looking at cycling, again, focusing on the sort of cycling that ordinary people could do, not the sort of maybe mountain biking, high octane stuff. So we identified 4, sort of 2 main circuits, northern and a sort of a mid circuit, but maybe 4 sub-circuits. And if we look at those on the map, the northern set of trails focuses on leaving Adair, where you'd pick up your bike, either from a bike hire or from your own bike. You can cycle northeastwards and head up towards Ballybrown and up to Newtown, where there's an absolutely beautiful little amenity centre up there, the Hedge School and the Salmon Haggard. Really interesting place, fantastic community there. and Carrigagunnell Castle, and quite a lot of bird watching out there on the old Shannon Flats. Now, coming back to the east or the west, you can head up towards Ballapallaskenry, out to Ringmoylan, and zigzag through some of the little leafy lanes, some lovely little back roads there, back down to Currachase and back to Adair. Lots of sub-loops within that, so you can go as long or as short as you like and enjoy the countryside. Coming southwards now into the sort of central area of the Maigue Rivers, leaving Croom and our brewery, you can cycle out to the east to Lochgur and take a few loops there through Bruff and others and stop off and enjoy the town parks, or go westwards out to Liskennet Forest, back up to Deister to Aingasa. Beautiful amenity there. You can see the photograph that's been beautifully restored, and stop off and visit little spots along the way. Now, boating, this is, I guess, an area that requires a lot more hard engineering type infrastructure. And speaking to a number of people who are very active on the ground, we come up with a number of proposals, one of which is, again, starting in the north, looking at developing some sort of a safe access and egress for the Maigue Rowing Club up at Ferrybridge. At the moment, they're using a sort of a tidal series of little areas where you lift up and down the boats with the tide, but trying to develop a better system. And one is to have a floating pontoon. The other may be to restore the old turf quay at Ferrybridge on the other side of the river. The Bucket Pub is very supportive of this initiative, and it's lovely to see that collaboration between a community and a local small enterprise. Now, the Adair Turf Quay has huge potential to become more than it is, which is a car park, and to actually host maybe boats coming up along the tidal reaches of the river, and again maybe supported by a floating pontoon, as you can see the sort of potential there in the middle photograph at the bottom. The Croomtown Park's a fantastic amenity, but it could be more, and you could create a whole activity zone there, and perhaps put in something like a little shallow lido, a little swimming amenity there during the summer at the park. Again, that would need to be a lot of issues around water quality, but you know, it's something that could be considered. Sibrin mentioned the small vessel trails proposal. So looking at, again, a couple of options for trails centering on the main north-south river channel. And again, let's have a look at those. So starting in the south, down at Brewery, basically upstream of that is not, sorry, bear with me a second, Brewery, which is just under that little green bar. You could paddle northwards. Another little trail coming in from Athlacca and moving on downstream through under Bono Bridge down to Cherry Grove. A further little trail comes in from Grey Bridge and Monaster down to Croom. And then below that, there's potential for another linking trail from Croom down to Adair. So you could do this in stages, as long or as short, again, as you feel capable of doing. There'll be some negotiation to be done there to provide safe access and egress at some of the bridges, but again, not insurmountable, and with the goodwill of landowners and inland fisheries and the council. The angling proposals looked at really, again, coming back to this issue of water quality and habitat restoration. There's no real point of putting in all sorts of hard infrastructure to support angling unless the issue of the water quality and habitat restoration is addressed. And Tom mentioned there in his introduction a number of measures that have been undertaken by the Maigue Rivers Trust. So we came up with a couple of recommendations which are based on the work being done by the Trust itself, and also on looking at good practice being undertaken, for instance, at Castleconnell on the Shannon and over across the way in Bridgetown in County Clare, where the communities have got very involved in the habitat restoration. There are issues around allowing more visitors to come and enjoy the angling delights of the Maigue system, and a day ticket system would be good for that. Getting young people involved is a big issue. A lot of the older anglers are very concerned that young people aren't becoming active anglers, and again, working with the IFI and others to develop angling zones and training and make it easy for young people to get involved. The last real, I suppose, key proposals pertain to nature viewing, and again, Catherine and I think Tom mentioned the idea of citizen science and getting people active in their own localities in observation of nature, and again make it easy for them. So we looked at maybe using the town parks network as the sort of hubs for this type of activity where people can easily access the river. So looking at innovative things like putting in photo posts where you could put your camera on your normal mobile phone, just put it onto the photo post and take a photograph on that day at that time and upload it to the cloud to a particular site. And then over a period of time, you build up a complete record just by the citizens taking their photographs of the seasonal changes taking place in that place of exactly the same time and place in that location. You could also have live streaming cameras to again capture aspects of the seasonal life of nature in action along the river. Working with the likes of National Parks and Wildlife Service and Birdwatch Ireland, we could in place bird viewing points, bird watching zones, and our nest boxes all along the rivers. Birdwatch Ireland have a whole new initiative now called Birdwatch Connect, which has just been launched this month, I think. And again, they're looking for communities to work with. So I think there's some scope there to link up there. Pollinating, the National Pollination Plan has been updated now to 2025. And again, communities all over the country are becoming active in developing pollinator trails, pollinator plans, huge scope to get involved. And then the great possibility, I think, is the idea of looking at the nocturnal wildlife along the Maigue Rivers, the bats and the owls. And Currachase Forest Park is home to one of the most rare bats in Europe, and he lives in the cellars of the old house there. And there are occasional bat walks, and it's something that could be again promoted and get more people involved and feeling precious about the heritage that is unique to this area. Finally, outdoor education and citizen science. This is within the nature viewing aspects. There are a number of really excellent things going on through the Kilfinnan Outdoor Education and Training Centre, but again, expanding the amenities there, maybe looking at developing modules for the Leaving Cert Physical Geography and Biology modules, and working with Kilfinnan Outdoor Centre and or maybe with the Mary I Geography Department, things could happen there. The Griston Bog amenity is gorgeous down there near Ballylanders, really in the upper catchment of the Maigue, of the Morningstar River. Loch Gur, fantastic amenity. They're looking at expanding the whole astronomy and the archaeoastronomy features of the site. The environmental history that is recorded in the sediments of Loch Gur are absolutely stunning. And again, give us a perspective on the continuum that is climate change. Looking at the forests and the small woodlands around East Limerick, fantastic opportunity to really work with local communities at Knockfearna, Ballyrowan, Ballyhoura and elsewhere to really celebrate the woodlands and do forest schools or forest therapy and various things like that. Citizen scientists could be embraced to record local seasonal changes in the area. You know, when did the first swallow arrive? When did the first bud open on the ash tree? When did the first flower arrive? When did the first celandine open in spring? And so on, and record these and build up a record over years that will feed into national citizen science programs with the National Biodiversity Data Centre. Looking at building a whole calendar of these type of initiatives, working with Limerick City and County Council on community gardens, which is part of the county development plan, the new plan, and then working with farmers, many of whom want to do the right thing in terms of environmental, enhancing their farming methodologies to be environmentally positive, and working with them rather than having this sort of public spats that tend to be the narrative on the media. And finally, there's a whole series of things that are not really specific to recreation, but that would work to enhance the public awareness of everything that is good about the River Maigue. So looking at the Maigue Festival, rather than having a one-off event, maybe have a rolling wave of events. That could include the Gandalow Rowing Festival. It could be the sort of play on the issue of May Day, the Water Quality Needs Assistance, Maigue Day, something like that. There's a fantastic initiative up in Newtown, the traditional salmon fishers, the people who fish the Shannon, who knew everything about the tides, the islands, the runs and flows at the mouth of the River Maigue. All that knowledge will be gone in one generation. And there was a proposal to maybe develop a film, and working with, again, the statutory agents to actually record that and for posterity and make a film of it and show the people doing the work and how they do it in very controlled situation where you're not in any way harming the habitats. The calendar of events already mentioned, maybe a Maigue Rivers summer school, as we see farther up the Shannon at Lanesborough, where we could celebrate all matters to do with the river. And then link that in with local artists and pop-up events and explorations of the river through photography, through art, maybe sculpture, music, and poetry, as we're about to hear later. So if we look at all of those and plot them onto a map, now you start to see that we're plugging the gaps of the Maigue Rivers. So you can see we've got all of the Ballyhoura Trails network to the south. We're proposing to fill in the gaps there in the middle range with water trails, which are shown in the sort of sky blue, looking at the cycling trails, working with the various partners, looking at the extension of the Great Southern Greenway to the east, and then looking at the Bank Walk and various other trails and things along the way. Restoration of the turf quays in Adair and Ferrybridge. So when we put all those proposals together with the existing, you can see now we've got a much healthier looking sort of integrated strategic, what will I call it, a whole fabric, like a mesh or a matrix of recreational potential in the Maigue Rivers area. And so there are a lot of proposals in there, and we have proposed with some of the directors of the Maigue Rivers Trust, maybe just to run a workshop to try and prioritise these and pull them out and do the sort of ones that can be done in the shorter term, the medium and longer term, and working with some local communities to see if this could happen as part of the next rollout of the Rural Development Programme. So that's it, really. The Maigue Rivers Trust, as mentioned, was supported by the LEADER programme, the European Agricultural Fund for Rural Development, and all of the partners as shown there, the Department of Rural and Community Development, the local community development communities network, whatever the wrong name on that, and Limerick City and County Council. So thank you very much. That's the view from Ard Patrick down in the very southernmost, showing the entire Maigue Rivers catchment, one of the most beautiful and most hidden and best kept secrets in Ireland. So thank you very much for your time tonight.
Thank you very much, Deirdre. That was an excellent presentation and overview of the study that was undertaken. Super. So we, in the course of the evening, then we'd set out that we would have some questions and answers at this point about Deirdre's presentation, about the study so far. So I see Bridie has her hand up. Bridie, would you like to ask a question at this point?
If that's okay.
Yeah, perfect. Thank you very much.
To start off, I just want to say that it was an excellent presentation. There's a huge amount of work gone into it. It's extremely informative. Obviously, I'm based, well, it's not obvious, but I'm based in Adair. So I'm one of the county councillors, but I'm also the chair of Adair Tidy Towns. So we are extremely interested, and I think Kevin Cribben was also on the meeting, in the development for recreational purposes of the River Maigue. And, you know, this is something that I think needs to be brought forward. My questions would be specifically around the actual report itself. Is this going to be submitted as part of the, you know, as part of a submission for the county development plan that's in the offing at present? And second of all, would you have any interest in coming to the district meetings to present this report to the other councillors in the local areas that would benefit from it, you know, that would be within the catchment of the Maigue. Because I just think that it's an extremely good report. It's very it's just very forward thinking. It's got everything. It's got the biodiversity. It's got the you know, the whole nature of the riverbank. My other question as well is actually the riverbanks themselves. I know the foreshores are generally owned by the state, and are the foreshores of the rivers owned by the state, or is that, am I just sort of talking out of, you know, talking out of line on that one? But listen, well done. It's excellent. Really enjoyed the presentation, and thank you again.
Okay.
Thank you, Bridie. Maybe I could just answer the latter question as against the land ownership. So what happens with the river is the landowner on either side owns up to the midway point of the river, typically under private ownership. Whereas you're right, the foreshore down on where it's tidal or where there's you know, where there's a rise and fall in the water, the state owns back. I think it's 6 meters back, but that's very poorly observed as well countrywide. But thank you for your comments very much. Appreciate it.
And well, on behalf of the Trust, Bridie, thank you for the suggestion of bringing the report forward. I don't know, just Tom or Liz, would you like to comment? Because actually, as a Trust, we haven't really discussed where next yet. I think that's our next plan. How can we start to bring aspects of this report now forward? Liz, would you like to?
Well, to be honest, you know, Bridie, you asked about, is this going to be submitted to the county development plan? I don't think we had considered it, but maybe we should have, and there is still time to incorporate it, because I think it's September is the final date for submissions. I suppose it's just to target it to the different objectives, but I don't think it should be too difficult, because the way Deirdre has presented it, it's broken down quite well. In terms of presenting it to the county council district meetings, yeah, if it was to the district meetings, or if it was to the overall council, I think we can work with Mike. Mike is on our board of directors, and yourselves, we can see, okay, what's the best way, because we do also want to talk about, let's say, giant hogweed, which is another issue that isn't being addressed in this, because it's nothing to do with the the remit. But there's a lot of work that the Trust is doing that it would be great for the councillors to be aware of, and also then in terms of where budgets are being allocated, where money is best spent, and what's most advantageous. But this is a perspective, but it's great having you here, so we can hear these comments and say, okay, these are the possibilities of where we take it next.
Yeah, no, that's great, because I actually had a chat with Mike there last night about the giant hogweed situation, and how we go about maybe trying to fund this central funding, as opposed to come out of the county council budget, that it should be coming from, it should be a directive from the government. So it would be great to see further discussion on that, and a plan of action put in place around it, because it is becoming a major problem. So it's going to affect the biodiversity, something serious, if it's not controlled pretty quickly.
And also recreation access.
Yes, yeah, for sure. Absolutely.
Okay, thank you very, very much, Bridie. I mean, if anybody else has any questions, you're welcome to put them into the chat also, if you prefer to ask a question like that.
I've put up the report, by the way, into the chat. I've given the link to where the report can be viewed from our website. It's there. And it's free for anyone to download and peruse at your own time. Take your time over it.
Can I just ask, just out of interest, can I put that link on our Tidy Towns website? Would that be okay to share it there?
Absolutely.
Okay, thank you.
Okay.
Yeah. Can I just say something, Catherine?
Brilliant.
I just want to thank Deirdre again for all the work she's put into the study. And I think it's fantastic. It's so comprehensive, and I think she's identified a number of things that probably haven't been identified before, And I think the role of the town parks network and how they can contribute to recreation initiatives. For example, I'm thinking of Croom as one example. You mentioned, for example, that it could be used as angling training zones. Like one of the things that the Maigue was famous for was angling. Even after the arterial drainage back in the 1970s, it was still, famous for it. And it's gone down since then because of water quality, but also because of other things, because the salmon population has deteriorated, has gone down in numbers, as it has in many other rivers as well. But we are addressing that, and we can address that. And I think using the town parks network, as Deirdre mentioned there, that's just one example of where you can set up fly fishing training zones or whatever. There's a great demand out there actually, and it's increasing as a result of COVID. A lot more people are getting interested in angling and in outdoor recreation in general. So those town parks can be used as with a little bit of not a great deal of investment, just a little bit of effort, as training zones for young anglers, for example, in conjunction with schools and so on. So I think even ideas like that, that are quite innovative and quite original. I think it's great that you have brought those to the fore, Deirdre. And thanks again for all the work that you've put into this. And we certainly will be disseminating this report and using it for future developments, through various avenues, as Bridie has mentioned there.
Catherine, I just want to also make a point. The Shannon Estuary Way, there's been a lot of community consultation with business. I see this report, backing up an awful lot of, let's say, developments or suggestions that are being brought to the fore. What Deirdre has put together in this report, backs up the need for recreation, and the Shannon Estuary Way is a great, initiative that's been led, and we have the Illan boat and everything. So I think it's come at a very fortuitous time. It wasn't planned, but it's working really well. So it'd be great to see that all being integrated and backing up people's proposals and suggestions.
Okay. All right. So I think we'll draw this Q&A session to a close then, and we have two short items now to finish off our evening. So Liz, can I hand over to you for this next item? Thank you, everybody. And thank you again, Deirdre. Okay, actually, so I forgot to say that leaflet that we're producing is still going under minor edits with GBM. So it will only be up on the Maigue Rivers Trust website, hopefully by the end of this week. So we'll launch it again on social media, but thank you for the opportunity for launching it tonight. Okay.
I'm just going to give a little bit of piece about the culture of the Maigue, and what it was once very famous for was the Maigue poets. Ireland is well known for its rich history of producing great poets and writers. And here in Limerick, the Maigue poets form an essential chapter in Limerick's contribution to our literature heritage. In the 18th century, on Court Fiolachta, or Court Poetry, was founded by Croom native Sean O'Toole. He put up an invitation on the outside wall of his tavern, which read, "Should any of the stock of the noble Gael, a brother bard who was fond of good cheer, be short of the price of a tankard of ale, he is welcome to O'Toole 1,000 times here." So as you might have predicted, this invitation was very well received, and many poets, some more talented than others, frequented O'Toole's tavern, and thus An Fili na Maigue was born. Sean O'Toole produced an immense body of work, and so too did his friend Andreas McGrath of Kilmallock. O'Toole was known as An Grin, the fun-loving, and McGrath was An Mangair Sugach, the merry peddler. They were childhood friends, and it is thought they may have attended the same hedge school. Unfortunately, they fell out in adult years, probably over McGrath's unpaid drinking bill, and they never reconciled. The two men committed their poetic talents to dueling in verse, and while these poems are humorous to us now, it is sad to know that the two men never made up. The most famous poem of the Fili na Maigue is Slán Cush Maigue, Farewell to the Maigue. It was written by Andreas McGrath after he was banished from Croom by the local parish priest, Father William Leo. Andreas was a bit of a drinker, and Father Leo did not appreciate the lustful ideas expressed in his poetry. The poem was written in Irish, but for tonight, I recorded local man Willie Carr of Martinstown, and he will recite Christopher Flynn's English translation of Farewell to the Mag.
A fond farewell I send from here to Maig's fair fields where produce teems, that peopled, perled, plenteous scene, o' tales and tunes and heart's good cheer. Alas, my woe, my low condition, no food, no friends, no rights, no riches, no joy, no jewels, no sport, no spirit, now doomed to dwell outcast. Farewell to all her freemen bold, to bard and priest, to sage and poet, to bosom friends whose noble souls deceit and greed have never known. Farewell to all her maidens fair, for brains and beauty, far and fame, to women of all style and state, their faults, their foibles, their winning ways. Farewell before all to one not named, that fair-skinned courteous beauty rare. She caused me to these hills to take, my heart's love still of Erin's maids. A wanderer weak, confused and cold, a piteous soul, fitful, forlorn, on the bleak hills I stand alone, in heather, hearing the north wind blow. When I visit the village as others do, in hostile mood my ways they view. The gossip for gab have something new. What place? Who is he? From where removed? Alas, my woe, my fortune altered, boozing and kissing beauty's daughters, have left me with no shelter lawful, and worse, as weak as water. From friends separated, my pitiful state, tormented by all, not knowing my fate, a season suffering by distance made, deprived of delight in the telling of tales. Since clerics prescribe me a partner new, till death, fair Maig, I'll stay from you. Forever I bid my love adieu, and so to all women, they caused my doom.
I'll tell Willie. Willie isn't technologically on Zoom, but I think he'll be pleased through it. And I'd say a few people will know Willie. He's a man with a digger.
Yeah. Here, tell him well done.
I'll send him on the recording. So,
Finally then, Liz, to our last item.
yeah.
So Liz, you're going to do a small introduction, I think, as well.
So, one second. I'm just closing down everything else. We have, Tom at the start said, we're expanding our membership, and currently we have some great people who do volunteer. And one such person is Conor Kirby. He's not here tonight, but Conor has, he's a keen angler, and he's a wildlife photographer, and it's great to see what he sees when he's out and about. And tonight we're finishing off with a presentation of his photography of wildlife on the Mag. And I'm just going to play this now. that was it. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Just maybe to finish off, I think, Deirdre, do you have your hand up? Or
Oh, I probably did. I just wanted to say thanks very much. It has been a real pleasure to work with the Maigue Rivers Trust, and finally to wish Limerick all the best on Sunday. So that was all I wanted to say from us beaten Tipperary people, wishing everybody the best. And thanks again for the opportunity to present tonight.
brilliant. Thank you very much, Deirdre. And thank you to everybody for joining us this evening. Yeah, we hope to see you all again at the next Maigue Rivers Trust event. And I think we're asking everybody to turn our cameras on now so we can do a quick photograph of those present at the launch, if you don't mind. Thank you, everybody. Thanks, Donna. Thanks, Mike. Thanks. Well, for anyone who wants to turn.
Anyone who wants to turn on their photo, it'd be lovely to have a record of who was here tonight.
Thank you very much. So Kevin
There is Tom.
Tom, we've lost our.
We need our chairperson.
Yeah,
okay, I'm going to go with this. So hang on, everyone.
Brilliant, thank you.
That's lovely. Thanks a million, everyone.
Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you all, and good night.